Hello and welcome to another video on the Life After Brady channel. Today we're going to take a look. The Patriots are currently sitting 5-6, having a historically bad season, especially for them. So we're going to take a look at what they're on pace to do with 5 games remaining in the season. We're going to go through the team overall, and then we'll focus on the passing, rushing, and receiving, and take a small look at the defense. So first, let's look at the team. Here in blue, you have offensive statistics, and then in the yellow-orange, you have the defensive stats. Currently 229 points scored, which is 21 points per game, on track for 333. That'll be the lowest since prior to Tom Brady, when the 17.3 in Belichick's first season. A lot of these stats will go back to that 2000 season, between Bledsoe and Brady. Points against, 23 points per game, worse since 1995. That either goes back to Parcells. I want to say that's a Parcells statistic, when they gave up 23.6, 14.1 points per game on a historically great defense last year. And that's one of the things we're not going to focus on a ton, but that's the kind of underpinning to me of this season. Yes, they lost Brady, but Belichick back in March was not expecting to lose Hightower, Chung, a couple other key pieces of that defense. They lose Van Noy and Collins through free agency, and that's been the really hard thing to replace. The good thing, they're playing a lot of rookies, so you expect that number 23 to go down in future years as they get back to being at least an average defense. Turnovers, they had 17 through so far, on pace for 25. The turnover statistics are terrible, though Cam has settled down a lot recently, so the 25 is probably a reach of where we'll end up. In 2006, they were at 27. Very bad. Obviously, you remember 2007, though. Pretty good bounce back, though not a lot of reason to think they'll do that. It's not like they're adding Wes Welker, Randy Moss, and Tom Brady in that flow next year. And then points against, or turnovers against, you see how cyclical it is. 18 in 2017, then 36 last year, 2019, and then 23 this year. Having a good year. J.C. Jackson leading the way, but it just goes up and down. And then passing. Passing is, we'll go into Cam a little bit more in a second, but just absolutely historically bad. They're on pace for 3,345 yards. That one's a really hard one to actually get a hold of. Cam's throwing for 400 against Seattle. A couple of weeks back, he threw for about 350, and then he throws for 84 last week. So who the heck knows where that number is going to end up, but it's on pace to be the 2001 3,089, which was the worst, and that was Brady's first year, obviously. So you had Ricky Brady throwing those. Passing touchdowns, this is the worst statistic you'll see. They have 6 this year, on pace for 9. That'll be the worst since 1970. We're going to talk about old school run the football. This is beyond that. This is atrocious. 9 passing touchdowns. Obviously, Cam Newton is an absolute weapon in the red zone. In the red zone, they're looking to run the football, but you cannot have single-digit passing touchdowns. Not in 2020 and not in 1970. So this is hysterically bad. Interception-wise, again, as I said, turnovers. This should wind down. It shouldn't end up at 19, but they're already at 13. You miss Brady on that one. Passing attempts-wise, you just see they're not throwing the football. Lowest since 1992 when it was 444. That is prior to Bledsoe, I believe, with 316 throw so far, on track for 460. Going into the passing stats, the ones in white above are the ones we just went through for the team. Let's look specifically at Newton. Obviously, he had the COVID issues for the KC and Denver games, so we'll go through his stats, and they're bad, and they're real bad. Passing yards, lowest of his career behind last year's 2-game season, so the lowest of his career with under 3,000 yards is what he's projected for. Passing touchdowns, 6, lowest of his career. And then interceptions-wise, this is where it's a little scary to me. This is why, to me, it's time to move on. So the passing yards and passing touchdowns are the worst. The interceptions are only the 3rd highest. So he's turned the ball over a ton, and it's still not the worst he's done. 2017, he threw for 16 interceptions, and then passing attempts-wise, they're just not throwing the football. They don't trust him. Cam Newton in Carolina was more of a thrower than he is here, and I know that's a lot of trust issues. You're trying to play winning football, but this is a bad Cam Newton. This is not a good Cam Newton, and we'll see that in a second with the rushing, where it's kind of the opposite, but still not good from a passing perspective. In terms of who he's throwing the ball to receiving-wise, Obviously, the passing attempts, are at historic low with 1992. Passing touchdowns lowest since 1970. So the receiving yards are obviously not going to be good. Julian Edelman came into the year as the number one receiver. He's been hurt. Probably won't play the rest of the season. Jakobi Meyers, was not really playing the first 2 or 3 games, and now, in my opinion, he's their best receiver. So really hard to say on a 16-game schedule, but at the same time, Gronk and Edelman were not playing 16 games the last decade or so. They're playing 12, 14 type of games, especially Gronk's last couple of years. So still should be better. But we'll take a look. I'm going to start with James White. That's the one to me that's really unacceptable. You got a quarterback in Cam Newton that clearly is not comfortable throwing the football down the field. You have one of, if not the best, receiving backs in the league. Just go ask Tom Brady what he thinks of his Tampa running backs, and you're not using him. They're trying to use him a little bit on screens. Obviously, defenses know now what he's doing, but when you're facing these 8-man boxes, I still don't get why he's not being used more in the passing game. All of his lowest statistics since at least 2015, the second year of his career, and then touchdown-wise, they don't throw touchdowns, so the 0. The only other time he had 0 was 2014. Career high 7 in 2018, and obviously the Atlanta Super Bowl. I don't need to tell you any more about that for James White. Jakobi Meyers, as I said, hard to predict. So this is, I did per game statistics, so it's not saying that he played all 11 games thus far. It's only the games he's played, so 8 or 9. He had 41 last year for receiving targets, already up to 47, 26 catches last year, or up to 36. And you see where Edelman was at last year with 153. Receiving yards-wise, 689, still better than teams like Philadelphia, but still not very good. You want that number 800 to 1,000, but I don't have N'Keal Harry up here for a reason. N'Keal Harry's been historically bad. Meyers clearly the better of the two young receivers at this point. And then touchdown-wise, Meyers has thrown for a touchdown in his career, but has yet to catch his own. And then receiving touchdown-wise, 3 is Rex Burkhead currently leading the team. Harry and Damiere Byrd have 1, as well as one other player, but Burkhead leading the team with 3. Obviously, he's out for the rest of the year, so won't be passing that. And then Damiere Byrd, quietly having a great year. Receiving target and receiving yard-wise, he's on pace to lead the team. Has played every game for this team, but you can see him compared to Edelman last year, obviously significantly lower, but no one expected Damiere Byrd to be Julian Edelman. No one should expect Damiere Byrd to be Julian Edelman. At best, he's a 3. He's what Philip Dorsett was running this offense the last 2 years, and they're kind of treating him as a number 2. Jakobi Meyers is usually the first threat, but stops on the left-hand side or some comeback routes. Damiere Byrd's your guy, and on pace for 81 targets, 730 receptions. Nothing to sneeze at, but not going to win you a lot of football games like that. This team's obviously bread and butter is running the football, so let's look at that. I did not expect this out of Newton. On pace for 138 rushing attempts, 581 yards, and 14 touchdowns. Usage-wise, it's high, but it's not the highest it's been. He had 139 carries in 2017. It's a lot to ask him if he's going to get 40 the rest of the year. I don't see that happening. And then yardage-wise, 581. He hasn't really scrambled much, which is where you'd pick up the big yards. It's good and bad. I think a couple more scrambles, and he could really touch this number. But 488 in 2018 shows, he's right around that range. So I think early in the year I said he was going to get about 100 attempts and 500 yards. He looks about that right now. The touchdown-wise, as you see, he's not throwing them, but on pace to rush for 14, which would be his highest since his rookie year. Body really taking a pounding, which is why I think they will move on in 2021. No reason to think this is repeatable. Then you got Damien Harris. Comparing him to Sony Michel, really hard to do. Harris didn't play the first couple of games of the year, was on IR, and then started off great. It's kind of slowed down a little bit. Had under 50 yards last week, but currently 110 attempts, 561 yards. He's looking like he's going to get a Sony Michel type rushing yards, 912, which is what Michel had last year, and 931 the year before. Michel had more carries, so Harris doing it on a more effective basis, which is what you've seen. Harris has been more effective than Sony Michel. Go look at the next-gen stats, and his rushing yards over expected are relatively high for the year. And then as you see, Newton on pace for 14 rushing touchdowns versus Harris on pace for 3. Towards the goal line, they are giving it to Mr. Newton, as they should. We told you this defense was historic last year. This year it's not. A lot of opt-outs, a lot of young guys playing, still finding themselves. We got the interceptions, tackles, and then getting after the quarterback. Really, all season it's been a controlled rush. They're not coming in blitzes. Trying to teach, to me, Chase Winovich and guys like that to play within a system, not play out of control. I don't have Josh Uche here, but I think the last couple of games, Uche, Winovich have really found a way to get to the quarterback and been more played with much more pressure. It's nowhere close to where it was last year. You look at the sack numbers. Winovich currently leading the team with 3.5, on pace for 5. Collins had 7 last year, and Chase had 5.5 himself. But to me, pressure is about, especially with the Patriots, it's the team pressure. They're gonna try and all get to the quarterback at once. It's not like the Jamie Collins days where you have one guy go get him. You see that in the QB hit numbers that are also all bad. Dedrick Weiss is the one to me that stands out. He a spot pass rusher the last 3 years. He had 10 or more QB hits each of those years. Currently on pace for 9. Has 6 right now. Just they're not going after him. They want to control these guys. They've also faced a lot of mobile quarterbacks. Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Mahomes. It's not like they're facing these Lamar Jackson. They're not facing these Tom Brady type quarterbacks that can't move. So therefore, hard to get those hits, hard to get those sacks. They really want to control them. J.C. Jackson, having an awesome career, restricted free agent this year, has gone up in interceptions each year, 3, 5, currently 6. Who knows that 9 is really a rough number. No way to know what he's going to do. Gilmore had 6 last year, so just showing what a great year Jackson's had. And then tackle-wise, Adrian Phillips, right there with Damiere Byrd for best free agent signing the Patriots had. Tough to tell who was better, but Phillips leads the team in tackles with 105, 71 solo tackles for such a small guy. That is very impressive. He's obviously doing it partly just by playing a lot. 78% of the defensive snaps he's played this year. And then Juwan Bentley, I did throw in the missed tackle number just to show you that Bentley's playing more, therefore you're going to get more tackles, playing middle linebacker. But the missed tackle percentage has jumped from 6.5 last year and 6.7 the year before that to 12.3. So he's missing twice as many tackles, which makes sense. He's primarily playing in run-stopping situations the years before. Now he's more of an every-down player, and as you know, he's not built for that. Much more of a run-stopping guy than a guy in pass coverage. And then Jonathan Jones, showing you that McCourty's will probably move on this season, and they have the corners in the back end. He's currently playing 78% of the defensive snaps. Previous high was 61%, and doing well doing it. Solo tackles, he's at 46 so far, already besting his career high of 44. With that, I leave you today. If you enjoy the video, please like, comment below anything that surprised you, and subscribe if you are not already.